The green light is blinking, so the green light blinking?
Good then, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Can I have your attention? We'll start. My name is Frank Morgenthaler. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, also a New York State licensed private investigator, and I represent a number of residents and business owners from Sleepy Hollow who are very concerned about the double standard of treatment and the discrimination that they faced from certain members of the village administration. Again, I'd like to thank Elaine, where are you, from the Independent, who's here. We're supposed to have some other people from the press who were supposed to be here, but I guess, you know, government corruption has become such a common thing anymore and an accepted practice that I guess most media outlets, they don't even want to cover or consider covering the events or the stories anymore. I don't know why. But we call this press conference today to announce that formal criminal charges have been filed with the New York State Attorney General's office against 3 Sleepy Hollow officials who conspired to fraudulently obtain a New York State Main Street grant through the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation for the property known as 75 Clinton Street, a building we know well right over there. Each of these 3 officials has been accused individually for their part in this scheme, and the charges contained in the complaint include 3 D felonies, 5 E felonies, and 4 A misdemeanors. And additional charges may be preferred at a later date. The 3 officials named in those criminal complaint, or in the criminal complaint, are Janet Gandolfo, the Sleepy Hollow village attorney and the former mayor of the village, who also serves as the chair of the Town of Mount Pleasant Democratic Committee and wields tremendous power and control over all of the village's elected officials and village staff. Next, Karin Wompa, village trustee and the president of the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation. And finally, Susan Roth, the executive director of the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation. Additional names may be added to this complaint as the investigation continues, and that's pretty much a virtual certainty that that's going to happen. All 3 of these individuals have violated the public trust, and they misused the power of their offices. Each should, at the least, be suspended from their current positions immediately, meaning today. Permanent dismissal of all 3 should occur pending the outcome of the Attorney General's investigation. Now, up until a few months ago, I didn't really know too many of the individuals that I represent here today, and we probably never would have come together if not for this village administration's blatant demonstration of discrimination against an Iraq War veteran, Captain Greg Lobato, United States Marine Corps, who had refused to hire for a position with the Sleepy Hollow Police Department. Back in August, we veterans held a press conference here in Sleepy Hollow to address the discriminatory treatment of a brother veteran by this corrupt village administration. At that event, I met a number of residents and business owners who had attended a rally in support of Greg, and I heard their stories of discriminatory treatment that they too had faced or experienced here at the hands of certain village officials. They explained to me that discrimination and intimidation were common practice here in Sleepy Hollow, and that the village government used it against any resident or business owner who had the courage to speak out against the questionable activities of the village's elected officials and their insider friends. Some of their concerns seemed quite serious to me, and following that encounter, I decided to look into some of the issues that were raised and was stunned by what I found. My investigation revealed some troubling facts about what some village officials had done. Their conduct necessitated that appropriate action be taken, and I decided to get involved. And I must admit that I was further motivated in taking on this task by the fact that 2 of these individuals, Gandolfo and Wompa, had intentionally discriminated against my brother Marine, Captain Lobato. And I'd just like to take a minute to speak about the Lobato issue. I guess you could say that some members of the village administration started a war of sorts with the veterans by their blatantly prejudicial treatment of Captain Lobato. While the veterans in attendance at today's event are here to tell those officials that veterans don't take kindly to discriminatory treatment of their fellow veterans. And veterans will fight to defend and protect each other. Veterans are not intimidated. by government bullies like those we find here in Sleepy Hollow village government. We fight back, and we won't quit until the injustice that we witnessed here in Sleepy Hollow is corrected and those responsible are punished. We will not go away until our mission is accomplished. I thank my fellow veterans for being here today and joining me in this fight, and have a message for the village officials. If you hadn't discriminated against Greg Lobato, we probably wouldn't be here today. So in the future, think twice the next time you pick a fight with a veteran. Now back to the criminal matter at hand. As I stated previously, I decided to look into some issues that had been brought to my attention by Sleepy Hollow residents and business owners. The results of that investigation validated their concerns, and one glaring issue that stood out above the others was a very questionable grant application that had been filed by village attorney Janet Gandolfo, and which had been approved by the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation. The grant application was prepared in an extremely sloppy and unprofessional manner, considering that the individual filing the application was an attorney. And in addition, it contained inaccurate and false information. And that's her application. You're gonna tell me an attorney did that? It looks like a second grade kid did it with a pencil. Very bad. So I'd like to provide the details of that grant application now, and how the actions of these three village officials rise to a level of criminal behavior. Janet Gandolfo applied for a New York State Main Street grant for the property known as 75 Clinton Street, Sleepy Hollow, New York. Sleepy Hollow tax rolls show the owner of that property to be Northeast J&J Properties Incorporated, with an address of 174 Weber Avenue in Sleepy Hollow. That happens to be the home of Janet Gandolfo. Janet also claims to be the principal or a member of the Northeast J&J Corporation. The Main Street Grant Program has specific requirements that must be met for eligibility and to receive grant funding. And the information that I'll be referencing is found in the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation Facade Program Summary and Checklist, and also in the Main Street Grant Program Guide, which we have here. Those requirements are as follows. According to those rules, the building must be located within the target area. 75 Clinton Street is not. The actual target area was identified as Eastern Beekman Avenue between Lawrence and Cortlandt Street, and along the western side of Cortlandt Street between Beekman and DePeister Street. Also on Beekman Avenue from Mechanical Street to Hudson Street. This is not in any of those. Properties applying for grants were supposed to be business or commercial properties. 75 Clinton Street obviously is not, and it's identified on the tax rolls as a residential building. Yet Janet Gandolfo claimed that her property was commercial on the grant application. Gandolfo lied on the application, and the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization officials, who should have known better, accepted that lie. Main Street grant projects must emphasize improvements to the facade of the building, with primary emphasis on front storefront entrance. Well, I don't see a storefront, and I don't see a facade on that building. So where is the facade? Where's the storefront? How could they approve this? And there's a quote from the guide here on page 1 that states the following. The design goals of the Sleepy Hollow facade program are to encourage property owners to renovate and restore their individual building facades in ways that enhance the historic character of the downtown. An important design consideration is the fostering of a physical environment conducive to street-level business. I don't see any street-level business over there. Okay? How does this project accomplish that goal? It doesn't. Besides the obvious non-compliance we see with the grant requirements, there are some very serious concerns about the way the village attorney applied for this grant and the answers that she supplied to questions on the grant application. And I want to highlight a few of the more important points here. Janet Gandolfo applied for this grant under the name of Northeast Properties Incorporated. Very similar to Northeast J&J, but not the same. Northeast Properties is a legally registered corporation in New York State, but she has absolutely nothing to do with that corporation. That corporation was organized in Delaware County, upstate New York, and it operates out of Pennsylvania, where the principals of the corporation, they reside. Gandolfo has no legal authority to use that corporate name to obtain this grant, yet she did. How was she allowed to do it? Didn't the officials on the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Committee know this? Wompa and Roth, they should have seen this. They have to verify the information on these applications before a claim can be made or a grant can be approved. But obviously they did not do it in this case. They allowed Gandolfo to lie once again. Ownership of 75 Clinton Street, as we said, is Northeast J&J Properties Incorporated, as it's listed on the tax roll. However, after we checked the New York State corporate database, which lists all the corporations legal in the state of New York, we find out that Northeast J&J Properties is not a corporation. That's another fiction, another fraudulent statement. And Gandolfo was well aware of that fact. Yet she still makes the claim of being a corporation. That's disingenuous, it's deceitful, and it's dishonest. A lawyer and a village attorney should know better. Why would Gandolfo apply for this grant in the name of a corporation that she has no legal authority to use? That being Northeast Properties Incorporated. Why did she not use the correct property owner's name on the grant, Northeast J&J Properties? Possibly there's a problem. Maybe there's a problem with Northeast J&J. Further research also reveals that Northeast J&J Properties is just a doing business as, a DBA as they call it, with Westchester County, has no filings with the state. Again, Gandolfo lied again on her application, and her friends who approved the grant were complicit. The Main Street Grant Program is administered by the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation, which is designated as the local project administrator. What that means is they get the money. They send the grants or the applications to the state after they approve them here. The state doesn't approve them. They approve them here. Goes up there, the money comes back here, and then they give it out to the applicant, okay? Here, they had to give money out to Northeast Properties. That's who filed for the grant. So how did Janet get the money from Northeast Properties? And how did Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization issue a check to her when the check was supposed to go to Northeast Properties? That's a big crime. You can't take money that's designated for another corporation and put it in your pocket. And that's what they've done. So again, it's not just Wompa and Roth being complicit here with the Downtown Revitalization Committee or corporation. That corporation must, according to the rules, set up a project selection committee and a facade program committee, which they did. And those committees also vote on this. So whoever sits on those committees is equally liable here and can face criminal charges. I haven't found out who's on those committees yet. We're still searching, but we will find out. And again, how could these reviewers approve the application when the information on it is totally fraudulent? Again, the entire application is consistently fraudulent in most of the answers, and it was unacceptable. Now, since the members of this committee processed the application, again, they have to be considered part of the problem here, and eventually, once we find out, we may file charges against them. The Main Street Guide Grant Program, again, just to be clear, and so that there's no misconception, because I know, I think Wompa and Roth responded to the Journal News article the other day and made some comments, but their comments were false. They're blaming the state. Well, the state changed the target area for the grants, and the state did this, and the state gave us permission. That's not the way it works. They have the ultimate authority here. Their organization has the authority, the only authority, to make the target area bigger, to include properties in, to bring more people in. It's all on them. And I just want to quote from the Main Street Program Guide. It says, the sole responsibility of compliance with requirements lies with the local program administrators. In this case, that's the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation. And further, it states that the LPAs, the local program administrators, must be mindful that they are responsible for compliance with all applicable New York Main Street program requirements. It's on them. They can't pass the buck, which they're trying to do. Therefore, Roth, Wompa, and any other committee members must bear full responsibility for what was done here, and therefore they all share in the criminal action and should share in the criminal charges related to this case. Additionally, the grant applicant and again, there's a lot of things here that they've done wrong, and I know it's long, but it's important to realize how many violations they committed in this application. It's unbelievable, and it passed. Again, the grant applicant, Janet in this case, is supposed to provide 2 bids from contractors for the work needed to complete a project. Gandolfo provided only 1. That fact alone should have canceled or denied the application. It did not. The chosen contractor must also submit proof of insurance for the job and also documentation that they're licensed by Westchester County for the project that they're going to work on. After checking the Westchester County licensed contractor database, it's found again that the contractor in this case, C&P Green Yards Landscaping Incorporated, is not a licensed contractor in Westchester County. Again, I guess we can't be surprised by this. Additionally, there's no proof of insurance included in the application. Failing to meet either one of these requirements is grounds to deny the grant, but it wasn't denied. Yet Gandolfo's application, as we said, was approved. Another important point to consider is that the contractor, C&P Green Yards here, claims to be a corporation. Once again, we checked the database for the state. They're not a corporation. I don't know what they are, but they're not a corporation, okay? And I guess a question that might come to be asked is, why would you hire a lawn company to perform construction work? Why wouldn't you have a construction company do it? And I don't know, if I'm looking at that building, I don't see much construction was done. So that brings up another point. Since this was a lawn maintenance, lawn service company, was the money possibly used for, say, lawn service at another property, say maybe 174 Weber Avenue, where Gandolfo lives? That's a question to ask C&P Landscaping and find out what the answer to that is. It would seem that almost every bit of information contained in the Gandolfo application is misleading, and that her intentions here were unethical, they were deceitful, and they were corrupt. Her application doesn't meet the requirements of the grant program. The information she provided in the application is inaccurate or intentionally fraudulent. How then could the application be approved, and how could the grant funds or funding be issued? Why was this application not denied by Roth and Wompa and their committee as officials of the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corporation? On that point, we need to consider that other property owners who also applied for these same grants were denied by these same people for not complying with the Main Street Grant Program requirements. One such property was located at 340 North Broadway in Sleepy Hollow, and its application was denied, and I quote, "The property was not in the target area designated by the Office of Community Renewal." Well, a couple of mistakes in that statement. The property at 75 Clinton Street is not in the target area either. Yet, the village attorney Gandolfo had no trouble having her grant application approved. Is there a double standard? Sure seems like it. And when you understand that the New York Main Street Grant Program states that, again, the local the local project administrator has the authority, and again, to quote, "The local program administrator, not the State Office of Community Renewal, defines the program area," okay? So they gave that excuse to the building on North Broadway, but the same didn't apply here. And they say that, I think it was Wompa that said, oh, we got permission, an exception here, permission to include this. Well, then why didn't that property get the same permission? You can't do for one without doing for the other. That's blatant discrimination, and it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. Now, again, we know this is another lie from these 3 individuals, but I'll tell you something. If I was the owner of that property, or any of the others who had their grant applications denied by this corrupt organization, I'd file an immediate federal discrimination lawsuit against the Sleepy Hollow Downtown Revitalization Corp., the Village of Sleepy Hollow, and each of the individuals involved, Gandolfo, Wompa, and Roth, and any members of that facade committee. And you know what? I'd win. Because what they did, there's proof, there's documentation, they can't deny it. They violated the rights of those other people, and they discriminated against them. That's a win. As a result of the perceived criminal actions here of these 3 officials, Attorney Gandolfo received $4,450 in New York State Main Street grant funding. It's not really the amount of money that should count, but that money should have gone to a legitimately eligible applicant. And that money is taxpayer money. It's your money, okay? Gandolfo, Wompa, and Roth conspired to misappropriate those funds. They need to be held accountable and appropriately punished for their actions. The Journal News published a story last Sunday about this grant issue. And Gandolfo, Wompa, and Roth were quoted in the article responding to the criminal charges that have been filed against them and attempting to rebut them. But not surprisingly, they couldn't seem to get their facts together and to tell the truth. They provided one lame excuse after another in a feeble attempt to defend their criminal actions. I've reviewed their quotes and compared their words to the facts, and true to form, they don't match. These three officials are desperate individuals now. They are facing serious charges for their criminal actions. In the past, they have survived here in the culture of corruption that exists in the government of this village. They had always felt invincible or untouchable before. They could tell the public anything and get away with it. Before, their lies always worked. No more. The people have decided, and in the past their intimidation of residents and business owners also worked. No more. The people have decided that they've had enough of corruption here in Sleepy Hollow. Corrupt officials are now going to be held fully accountable for their actions. I believe that the Attorney General will fully investigate this complaint, and at the end of that investigation will file criminal indictments against these three individuals and possibly others. The Attorney General, Schneiderman, I think has done a great job in fighting against public corruption, making arrests of sitting elected officials from both political parties, state senators, assembly people. He's done a good thing. And we anticipate a similar fair and impartial result in a resolution of this complaint here in the village. Corruption in government must be eliminated. Let's begin by eliminating it right here in Sleepy Hollow. As stated earlier, all three of these individuals need to be removed from all of their current positions immediately, just as the signs say, or the handouts say. They violated the public trust and no longer deserve the right to make decisions that affect the good people of this village. They cannot be trusted. In regard to Janet Gandolfo, she should also be removed as the chair of the Mount Pleasant Democratic Committee, where she wields significant influence. She's an embarrassment to the village and to her party as well. Possibly a complaint should also be filed with the 9th District Judicial Committee, seeking to have her law license revoked. The criminal complaint that was filed against Gandolfo, Wompa, and Roth contains the following charges. Pay attention to these because they're pretty serious. Grand larceny, tampering with public records, offering a false instrument for filing, scheme to defraud, official misconduct, corrupting the government and public corruption. If found guilty on all counts and sentenced to the full penalty on each of these three officials could face over 40 years in prison for their actions in this criminal activity. If the accused aren't taking this complaint seriously, I would advise them and recommend to them that they start doing so now. Individuals like these three don't deserve to serve in public office, and they must be removed now. One additional note just before we end this conference. For those who aren't aware, there's also a federal investigation ongoing here in the village right now related to the discriminatory treatment of Greg Lobato by the village board in voting against his appointment to the Sleepy Hollow PD. Federal investigators are here. The Attorney General's investigators will be here shortly. Soon the investigators, they're going to be tripping over each other here in Sleepy Hollow. Federal, state, local. Hopefully, though, they brought enough handcuffs to accommodate all the crooks that they will find here. I thank you guys all for being here today. Together, if we stay together, we can end the corruption that has run rampant here in this village for far too long. We now await justice to be served and await the outcome of the Attorney General's investigation. And I would, if anybody would like to call the Attorney General, I know it's a little early in the game, they probably won't tell you anything yet, but you can call them and encourage them to come up here, and if you have any information you think they might need for this, feel free to give them a call. I'll give you guys the number after if you want it, and we can go forward. Anybody have any questions? Anything?
No, I'd like to have everybody gather behind Frank, and
Again, thank you folks for being here today, and it means a lot. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good, yeah.
All right, everybody squeeze in.
The phone number? Before we go. Yeah, all right? Sorry.
Everybody squeeze in. This side, squeeze in.
We're not exactly skinny to squeeze.
All right, if everybody can start by saying, Gandolfo must go.
Yeah, here we go.
Gandolfo must go. Roth must go. Roth must go.
Must go!
Wompa must go. Wompa must go.
Must go!
Gandolfo must go.
Roth must go. Wompa must go.
Good job.
Gandolfo must go!
Well done, man. Well done.
What are you gonna do with this video?
Huh? This will get distributed.
The red must go!
Yes. Would you like a copy?
No, it's okay.
Good job.